Welcome back to Quick Films. Today, I will show you biography, drama, action, titled Ip Man 2. Watch and enjoy. The movie starts with the master IP going to his new school where he sits alone with no new students. After that, he gets down and helps his pregnant wife to carry the water and tells her not to carry anything that heavy anymore. When he gets back home, the son tells them that his parents that he needs money to pay for his school fees in 2 days. The mother gives him the money, and not even seconds later, the landlady knocks on the door to collect the rent. They do not open the door because they do not have any money. The following day, the wife visits the master IP after school to eat lunch together. He gets out to smoke a cigarette and he runs into his neighbor who's out hanging laundry. She asks him if he had any luck finding new students for his school. He tells her he is still waiting and starts hanging the laundry for her. While he's hanging the laundry, he meets a guy who says he wants to train under him. He tells him that if he beats him in a fight, he will pay the registration fees, and he accepts. The master IP beats him, but the guy leaves without paying anything. The master then sadly closes the door to the school. Some moment later, the guy returns with his friends and tells them to beat up the master IP. They make fun of him, telling him he looks like a plumber in his clothes. He tells them to leave as they are not students, but they attack him, and IP defends himself. After that, he sees one of the guys behind him on the ground. He tells him his name is Liang, and he wants him to train him. His friends Sui Saichang, Nai Kuaking and Wang Kun also get on the ground and beg him to train them. He tells them to pay the fees first. He then starts training them and teach them more about Wing Chun. He is then surprised by the appearance of new students asking to be trained by him, and he knew that they were invited by Liang, and he started getting more and more students every day. His wife tells him that it is time for the fees to be paid. He informs his students about it, and finds that some of them do not have money to pay. The master IP forgives them, and goes back to his wife who counts the money and tells him that it's not enough, and that they need to ask the landlord to give them more time. He tells her that things will get better soon for them. Master IP goes out to buy food for the family and finds out that his friend Chunnam has stolen a duck, and he was followed by his son. Master IP quickly pays the price of the duck to the owners, and he looks for his friend with his son Yao, who tells him that his father started to have memory problems after the shot he had to his head during the days of colonization. Master IP is saddened by the news and promises him that he will help him take care of his father. The following day Master IP then takes Yao to work for his friend. Meanwhile, Liang was posting promotional posters for the school when someone started taking those posters down, and they started fighting. Then the guy's friends join in the fight. His friends then go to Master IP's school and tell him that they took Liang as hostage and demand a ransom from him to be paid at the fish market. IP heads to the local fish market as directed and looks for them until he finds him. Then he demands to see Liang. They bring him out and ask him for the money. He tells them he didn't bring any money. They attack him, and he defends himself, but kept ganging up on him. And then he sees Jean coming towards him with his own gang and tell IP and Wang to go away, and that he will deal with the rest. Moments after, Hung, who is the master of the guys who got beat up, comes with 100 men and asks if they got themselves in trouble again. He replies that he is a victim, and that Liang beat him and brought his master to scare him. Hung asks IP if he knows the rules of fighting in his country. He replies that he is still new and he doesn't know anything. He tells him that in order to teach, he needs to challenge every school in the region first. A police officer appears and arrests both of them. We later see Hung with a corrupt policeman, gives him a bribe and leaves. We then see IP in a prison cell along with Liang, who tells him that they need to take their revenge. IP tells his that revenge isn't the solution. Meanwhile, IP's wife comes to the police station along with his friend and pay for IP to be released on bail. A moment later Jin's wife also arrives to release him on bail. IP then looks over to Liang and asks him if anyone's coming to pay for him to be released. He then responds that he doesn't have anyone, and that he can endure 2 days in the prison cell. IP then asks his friend how much money he has on him to release his disciple. He tells him that he doesn't have enough. Jin then takes money from his wife and gives it to him. IP thanks him. Before sleeping, IP's wife tells him that they need to pay more attention to the school since they have weird rules. She says she worries something similar would happen again. He tells her not to worry, and that he will have a talk with the other masters later. The next day we see Master Ching asking Master Law if he has ever heard of Ip Man. He says he has never heard of such a ridiculous name. Ching tells Law that he can surely not be better than him, and Law returns the compliment. Master IP then arrives. Master Hung introduces IP and tells everyone that he came for the test in order to be able to teach. He tells them that IP challenges them, and that the person who falls from the table will be considered a loser. IP gets on the table and introduces himself and waits to see who's going to challenge him first. Law insists on being the first one. IP beats him up and throws him under the table. Cheng challenges him second. Law warns him that the table is slippery. Cheng goes up and Ip Man completely humiliates him without even hitting him. Cheng thanks him for his forgiveness. Master Hung then asks if there is anyone who wants to challenge IP, and no one does. He then gets up himself to challenge him, and they start fighting. They kept going until the table broke up in half and each one of them stands on one side. Master Hung tells IP that he can start teaching officially if he can pay $100 as a monthly fee. IP then tells them that he will not be paying anything, and that if any one of them wants to challenge him again, he doesn't have any problem. We see Yao taking pictures of them. He then goes back to his newspaper's office where he writes about Wing Chun. His boss then tells him that he is proud of him, and that everyone wants to learn the art of Wing Chun. The following day, we see Hung's disciples with their leader YK scaring away anyone who is interested in being IP's disciple. They are then spotted by Liang, and they get into a fight and make a mess. IP then is informed by Ching that the landlord will no longer rent the space for him after what happened. IP then tells his disciples that they will no longer train in this place. He asks them to tidy everything up and leave. We then see Master IP heading towards Master Hung. He tells him that he will not pay him anything, and that he will no longer teach in a school, and that if he has any more problems, he can tell him instead of bothering his disciples. He then excuses himself, but Hung tells him that he can't leave that easily, and that they need to finish the fight they started last time and strikes him. IP then gets Hung's son, who was behind him, out of the way and tells him to go back to his children and leaves. Meanwhile, the disciples are bringing the training gear to IP's house, and he tells them that training will resume the following morning in his house and they leave. Liang stays behind and tells IP that he needs to talk to him. He then gets on the ground and expresses how sorry he is that everything that's happening is because of him. IP then tells him to sit down and tells him about the story of how he humiliated Master Cheng when he challenged him. While Master IP was training his disciples, Hung gives him tickets to attend a boxing match and leaves. IP arrives to the show and tells his disciples to greet the other disciples who are in the show. Twister then asks to be hit by one of the students, and he starts beating them up. Liang joins the fight and Twister punches him, and he falls to the ground. Master IP then intervenes to break up the fight along with Master Hung, and they ask Twister to apologize. He says that he will not apologize until one that beats him. Master Hung then volunteers and a very violent match starts. Then they take a break. After the break, Twister strikes Hung, and he falls to the ground. He gets back up at the last minute, tries to fight again and falls again. Master IP tells him not to get back up, but he does, and when he falls this time, he doesn't get back up and dies. We then see Master IP very sad at Hung's funeral, and says that he is very proud of him. The news is then spread through newspapers and the Chinese populace gets very angry at Westerners. We then see Fatso heading to Ching's newspaper office which published news about Hung's death. They arrest him and Officer Wallace starts beating him up until Fatso intervenes and tells him that he will ruin his reputation if anything happens next time. The next day a press conference is held where Twister announcing that he is challenging every Chinese person and calling them cowards. Meanwhile IP arrives and accepts the challenge. Twister tells him that he has committed a grave mistake. When the landlady receives the news that the Master IP will fight Twister, she tells him that his wife and kid are welcome in her house while he trains. IP's wife gets into labor while he is training. Then we see IP heading towards the fight that everyone is waiting for. We then see Twister getting inside the ring. The first round starts and Twister is very strong, and he keeps striking Master IP until he falls to the ground. IP gets back up at the last minute and everyone is happy. He then strikes Twister one after the other until he kicks him, and he falls to the ground, but unfortunately he gets back up and strikes Master IP and he falls down. When he gets back up, they give them a break. The second round starts and Master IP is so fast that Twister can't figure out where the kicks are coming from. Master IP the punches Twister one last time before the bell rings for a break, but Twister sucker punches him. The judges side with Twister and tell IP that if he uses the same technique as earlier, Twister will be the winner. The third round starts and IP kicks Twister. When the referee comes to talk with IP, Twister sucker punches him again, and he falls down, but he thinks about Master Hung telling him that he will not let Westerners look down on them. He gets back up visibly tired, but this round is different for the others because IP focuses on Twister's muscles and exhausts him. The IP starts striking his face, and he beats him. Everyone is happy for the news. And when Wallace was leaving, Fatso blocks his ways and reports him. The police arrests him and tells him that he brought shame to them. Meanwhile, Master IP says that he didn't fight today to prove that the Chinese are better than the Westerners, that everyone is equal, and no one is better than the other, and everyone gets up and claps. We then see Master IP running to see his newborn. He tells his wife that the baby looks exactly like her, and that he wants to name him Ching. At home, Yao visits IP's house and tells him that he brought him someone who wants to be his disciple. He sees a young child named Bruce Lee. He asks him why he wants to train. He tells him to beat up people who bully him, but Master IP tells him to come back when he gets older. We then find out that in 1959, Bruce Lee visited Master IP again at the age of 16, and he learned Master IP's techniques and got famous after that. And that's it. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell, and let us know your thoughts about the movie.